Joining us is friend of the program and co-founder of LikeFolio.com, Andy Swan. Good morning to both of you. Some fun names today, some interesting names, I would say, and I'm really interested to see what this conversation, where it goes. We're talking CROX, which is kind of the obscure plastic footwear.
Right.
And then Polaris, which is like, you know, utility vehicles, ATVs, things like that. So both fun, and I'm excited to see which one's the winner and which one's the loser.
Yes, so CROX, has had really interesting price activity. It's risen about 230% over the last 12 months, so it's obviously outperforming significantly the S&P 500 as well as the consumer discretionary sector. So it did hit all-time highs actually yesterday of about $117 a share, but since its inception in 2002, it has sold more than 720 million pairs of shoes in 90 countries. So it does have that global reach, which did surprise me. But what it has done really well is it has a very, very strong fundamentals, and it's actually beaten earnings expectations in the last 4 straight quarters. So it currently trades at a PE ratio of about 17.7, which is strong considering its rate of growth. Another thing is it's grown its revenues by more than 35% since fiscal year 2017. But even more impressive than that, it's grown its annual earnings by 3,000% since 2017. So one weak point, the only really weak point I could find with this name is that its balance sheet has over $255 million in cash with over $555 million in debt. So that is concerning, but I have to say that this is a LikeFolio darling, I believe, and of course that sentiment was reflected on Twitter today. So our first tweeter says, "Funny foam shoes have outperformed the total U.S. stock market by 295.24% over the past 2 years. All-time highs again for CROX. What a trend off last year's low." So I believe last year's low was about $8 a share. So it is now trading at about $115. Undoubtedly a success story over the last year. But Andy, I have to know, do you actually own a pair of CROX? Because the fundamentals are healthy, but I can't say that the shoes are necessarily something I'm dying to buy.
Jenny, I am known for wearing CROX onto stage to speak about stocks. That's how much I'm into this company. I've loved it for a long time. LikeFolio's been bullish on this company for a very long time, and it's all because of the consumer demand that we are able to see. This is a company that just continues to kind of defy expectations. This is a company that the consumers that love it, love it. The ones that hate it, hate it. They battle it out all the time, but the haters are losing in a big way. And we're seeing that over and over again. In fact, when we compare CROX to some of its rivals, as we go into this back-to-school shopping season, which, as you can see from this chart, back-to-school shopping season was very suppressed last year with a lot of school closures and uncertainty. So we think there's huge pin-up demand for back-to-school shopping as we head into 2021. We're already starting to see that ramp up pretty significantly early here before even July. But what CROX has really going for it is versus competitors like Skechers versus Deckers Outdoor, we are seeing purchase intent mentions for CROX already start to take off, up 24% quarter over quarter, while other competitors lag behind. And it's really due to their unbelievably successful collaborations with the DJ Diplo, with Lightning McQueen movie that's coming out, and others. And they do such a good job with that. They drop new products that people like. They've become kind of a iconic trend-setting anti-fashion trend, and I think it's really working for them, and consumers just continue to love it. So this is the winner today for us at LikeFolio, has been for a long time, and we continue to see blue skies ahead.
Andy, this stock is a Generation Z cult following, and you listed some of the names that have brands in this company, and they are staying in their lane and keeping with this young crowd, and they've come into Russian punk bands. Jenny, there are stiletto CROX.
Oh God!
So you know, there's unfortunately I am excluded from this group because, well, for many reasons, but I am not a CROC follower or a wearer. However, what I do like is money, and this stock has been nothing short of a stalwart. And companies like Under Armour and Adidas would love to have charts like Crocs does. But Andy, what is there next? I mean, you read about this company. They've got Crocs with metal spikes and chains for punk rock bands. Justin Bieber wears them. That's probably a different, but they've got so many different groups. This is a very versatile company that seems to be doing the celebrity following that's become so popular lately. Is that kind of their game plan going forward, the celebrity endorsements?
Yeah, I think it is, and it's more than an endorsement. I think it's really collaboration. It's, the product is so fungible. The manufacturing process, they can come up with, if you can come up with the design, they can probably make it. And I think that brings a lot of, artistic types to the table. It brings a lot of authenticity to the table when they have an endorsement from someone. I just watched one from Lily King, who's a fantastic world record-setting swimmer that's going to be in this summer's Olympics from my hometown of Evansville, Indiana. She did a 3-minute piece on Crocs, a day in the life, and it just comes across as super enthusiastic because it shows the versatility of the shoes. It shows why people like them. It's not about, the highest fashion. It's about comfort and kind of quirkiness. And I think that comes through. And just like you said, Kevin, they stay in their lane really, really well, and they execute in that lane very well. And so continue to see that being the strategy for the company. I don't see why they would change that at all.
You know what I find actually really fascinating about this name, Andy, is that you all actually were sort of ahead of this curve because, now Justin Bieber is posting about it. So I know people that are interested in owning Crocs, of course, because he's very influential among the younger generations. But you guys were actually kind of ahead of that, which is really cool, to follow this story. But the other name we're talking today is Polaris, which, of course, creates all of these different, power sport bikes and different things for the outdoor experience. And some of its product lineups include the Polaris Ranger, the Razor, and the general side-by-side off-road vehicles. But they also sell snowmobiles and pontoon boats and different parts and accessories. And what I actually didn't realize, they also have a presence in some of these military and also commercial off-road vehicles. So they've seen sort of a slight dip since their last earnings report, and they're also being sort of weighed down by these supply chain bottlenecks. For example, I actually thought this was very interesting. They said there's not enough, power behind their supply chain pipeline right now to produce their 4-seat utility terrain vehicle because of actually a shortage in foam padding. So they are now shifting to make 2- or 3-seat models, which I found, that obviously can't be a good sign that they're sort of shifting what they make to accommodate supply chains. But, I do have to respect that there's sort of, going with what's in the economy right now. I just thought that was funny, a shortage of foam padding of all the things. But our next tweeter today discusses how there is this degree of seasonality and also depends how interested you are in this company and where you live. So our next tweeter today says, yeah, I get your thesis. I live in Florida, so snowmobiles don't work down here 12 months of the year. Not exactly practical for anyone I know to own one of these silly machines. Polaris is a great short for me. So I was curious if you see this at all in your data, because there is a whole region of the country where, yes, snowmobiles aren't practical. And I thought that was a really good point. However, I am aware that this company does make more than just snowmobiles.
Yeah, so this is a company, we touted the company's strength last summer as entertainment options really constricted across the country. Polaris made all of those types of things that you would want to own during some sort of shutdown, and they benefited greatly from that. We saw that along with a strong holiday season this last quarter, but we really think when we look at the data from LikeFolio, the consumer demand data, what we're seeing is that was most likely very much a pull forward in demand. You can see here the growth rate has really normalized. You saw a big spike, big pull forward in demand. And in fact, we're seeing purchase intent down 43% year over year, down 35% from 2019. So while we are seeing a little bit of the seasonal ramp up that we normally see right now, it's at a much lower level than we normally see. This is kind of the classic LikeFolio divergence chart that you see here in bright green is purchase intent mentions, and that blue is the stock price, you can see things have diverged pretty strongly. And, we think Polaris definitely has significant headwinds ahead of it because they make expensive things that people felt like they needed to buy during what was happening in 2020. But when do you need to buy the next one once you have one in the garage and you're not using it? That's the question. I think they have a significant uphill climb from here in terms of consumer demand.
Andy, when I look at the products from this company, it's really a perfect score. If you look at off-road vehicles, all-terrain vehicles, side-by-side vehicles, snowmobiles, motorcycles, global adjacent vehicles, every single thing that I don't allow my children to participate in is covered in the Polaris portfolio. So the question is, what is their product that will get them to the next level? I mean, some of these are seasonal, obviously, with snowmobiles. Is that mainstream product? Is it those all-terrain type vehicles, those small little trucks that they sell? Is that what? And what is it that they sell to the military? Is it kind of like these small little Jeep-like carts? I'm interested to know, like, what is their most popular brand?
Well, I think that their four-wheelers, their off-road vehicles is clearly where they lead. People do love those. I think that the seasonality of it is definitely, built into the company. Everybody knows that there's only so often you're going to be able to use a snowmobile, probably only so often you'll be able to use a four-wheeler in a lot of regions. But I think overall for the company, they're in a little bit of a tough spot because they do have supply issues on one side, and I think that they're going to have a very difficult time gauging demand. And so when you have that combination of a supply chain that's significantly extended, and now you're trying to predict what you'll need 90 days from now, 120, 180 days from now, and that consumer demand is so thrown off by the pull forward factor that happened last year, it becomes very, very difficult to execute at high profit margins. So I think that you've kind of got a really nasty storm brewing for Polaris, just that you could see some profit margin compression because of the supply chain issues, because they may have to over-order, they may have to over-anticipate consumer demand, which was probably pulled forward significantly last year. At least that's what LikeFolio data is showing so far.
So Andy, I've been sitting back taking all this in. I can say just from like the fun light side of the conversation that we had with CROX, we're talking about punk rock bands and Justin Bieber. Then we get into, 4-seat utility vehicles with foam padding. It's not as fun. And so just solely off that, I can see the winners and losers. Kevin says, it's not something he'd let his kids ride. I'm not sure he lets his kids wear Crocs either, but that's going to change. So I think I'll coordinate with you after the show, Andy. We'll find a nice pair for Kevin. We'll get those sent over to him. But all things together here, I think the key point, and there's something to take away from both of these that's even applicable beyond just investments or not investments in both of these products. One in CROX, which is ironic purchasing, trend purchasing. That's still people buying this product. And regardless of the reason why, this company's doing well fundamentally, as Jenny laid out, and the growth and the trajectory seems to be intact. With Polaris, the story was great last year. We talked about it here on the show, but it's a big ticket item and it's somewhat of a niche product. And so you take away kind of the driver of demand and you leave it with just a big ticket item that has a really long shelf life. It doesn't necessarily play forward as well as it looked like it was going to maybe just last year, especially as the pandemic in many ways seems to be winding down. I know that there's other variants and things that are still unknown, but I see a lot of reopening taking place in the US. So Andy, last thoughts here. Is kind of the key takeaways beyond this that, doesn't matter perpetuity?
Yeah, that's exactly it. And I would say, the other thing that we need to do is just be open-minded about what might work. We don't know what everybody's going to like. We know what we like, but we don't know what everybody's going to like, going to buy more of. I think if we would have talked in 2009, you probably would have had similar skeptical reactions about CROX. So, a company's ability to execute depends clearly on the consumer demand that it's able to generate. And I think oftentimes we're too quick to throw some companies out simply, and I think we need to be more open-minded and data-driven than that.
Andy Swan, good stuff as always, the co-founder of LikeFolio.com. Jenny, when we're talking